When it comes to buying or selling a home, is there an art to it or is it a science? Art or science? It's the Real Estate Show. Welcome to the Real Estate Show. My name is Rick Naples. I am the owner-broker of Zone Realty LLC. You zone your home. Today's show, I'm going to talk about the art and the science behind marketing and selling a home, or for that matter of fact, looking to buy a home. Now, what do art and science have to do when it comes to real estate? Well, let's think about that for a minute. There is an artistry that realtors will use when they're looking to make a home appeal to the widest bunch of buyers they possibly can. There are certain things that need to be done to the house, staging if you will. There are certain things that need to be taken into consideration when a house goes on the market. And as a buyer, there are other things that need to be considered when you're looking at a home. Now, the artistry that's involved can involve a lot about technique, being creative, especially when it comes to marketing. It can also be the realtor working with a buyer on looking at different homes as to what kind of homes they're looking at, style, location, and so on and so forth. So there is a little bit of an artistry involved. When marketing the home, the realtor has to use their expertise and their skills to be able to put the home into the multiple listing service and creatively describe that home, to be able to get a buyer who's looking at it on the internet to want to go look at the home. There's techniques that are involved. There's artistry that is involved. There's expertise that's involved. The experience of the realtor and their creativeness in being able to generate interest in a home for sale goes a long way in getting that house sold. It also goes a long way in incentivizing or wanting buyers to go out and look at the home. Now, what about the science? What kind of science is involved? Well, when I say science, I'm talking about data. Scientific research is a way of looking at data and analyzing data, or looking at something and analyzing what it is. So realtors spend a lot of time on the science end looking at houses, looking at comparable houses, coming up with a price that is good to the marketplace based on what that house has to offer, what the data is showing of like houses that are out there with like amenities. They're looking at the market, whether it's up or down or even. They're looking at mortgage rates. They're looking at the buyers that may be coming out. They're taking all of this data and statistical information and scaling it on down to a usable number that has the biggest possibility of not only getting the seller what they need to sell the home, but also is a price that a buyer feels the house will be worth. So there's a lot of scientific evaluation that goes into it. There's also some science that's involved, like the artistry, when it comes to marketing the home for sale. Now, they've got to take a look at the data to see what's going on out there. How do they market that home in such a way that appeals to the widest range of buyers? What is the data saying as to how fast the home will sell? What are the price ranges that homes are selling in? Is there any kind of data statistics that can be used to appeal to a buyer? The location, the style of the house, the area that the house is in, as I just said, location. So all those things come into play. So there is a science that's involved when it comes to selling the home. There's also a science that's involved when it comes to buying a home. This could be, where do you start your search? Where is the best place to see the most number of houses that might fit your particular want or need. Now, both the science and the art are two different techniques that kind of combine together in order to get to a successful sale or a successful buy of a home. Let's take a look at this presentation, which looks a little bit more into the art and the science of buying and selling. Speaking about art and the science of selling or buying a home, I want to spend a few minutes here to talk about colors. Now, what does color have to do with real estate? Well, if you read on the internet or look up any articles, you'll see there's a lot of articles that are out there that talk about how colors influence us as human beings. I can't tell you how many houses I've gone into where perhaps the color choices of the owner of the home weren't exactly the kind of colors that would appeal to the masses. Now, you've heard realtors talk many times about neutralizing the home, about making homes neutral as far as their color schemes are concerned. This doesn't mean drab and plain, but it means making the homes as appealing to the widest range of audience that you possibly can. They'll make recommendations of using colors that are neutral. In other words, what's really popular is the white colors or the gray colors. Bold colors sometimes have to be used with a little bit of caution. Now, bold colors come into play if you're going to do, say, an accent wall or something like that, or if you're doing something in an area that you want to highlight. But you have to be conscious of what colors convey to buyers. Now, I want to talk about the front door of the house. The front door of the house is the way that people are going to approach and the first thing they're going to see, right, when they come to look at your home. So if that door is unpainted or that door is in rough shape, it's going to make a certain impression on the buyer before they even step into the house. The color of the front door can also convey different information to a buyer. Now, there's all kinds of different philosophies as to what color your front door should be. Right now, one of the more popular colors is black. Now, I know that seems counterintuitive. Black usually means something that's sad or depressed. But in real estate, sometimes a black door to the front of the house promotes elegance or luxury. It's welcoming as opposed to being sad. There's also the red door. You know, we see a lot of red doors, especially on colonial style houses, because that's more of a traditional type color. You want to make sure that the front door color, by the way, matches the color of the house. In other words, it's complementary. You don't want to have a bright orange front door or a bright, pink front door or purple. Well, I'm not going to say purple is bad because dark purples kind of go along with the blacks. But again, color is going to have a certain effect on buyers when they come in the home. You've had buyers, over the years come in and make comments about houses that they've seen where perhaps there were a lot of bright colors in the house that they felt were a little bit overboard, sometimes based on our ancestry or based on where we've grown up or how we've come up in the world. We have certain colors that are our favorites. We all know about the pink room for the girl and the blue room for the boy and so on and so forth. But again, it's better to neutralize colors. There are certain colors that may convey the wrong thing. Now I'm wearing a red shirt. Red is a color that sometimes means caution, and I chose to wear this red shirt for this show basically to demonstrate how color affects the buyer or the viewer out there. Wearing this red shirt, you may be able to perceive that I'm talking about cautionary tales here, being cautious about the colors that are used. Sometimes people will use colors that are a little bit too much. Subdued colors are better than bolder colors. Bolder colors might be better than subdued colors. You'll be amazed what difference it can make when you paint a room a certain color as to what the feeling of that room is going to be. If the room is a small room, you don't want to really use dark colors. One of the things that came up in a conversation just recently is, why are all ceilings painted white? Have you ever thought about that before? Why are the ceilings white? Well, the ceilings are white in homes because white reflects light. It gives a feeling of height. That's the reason why your ceilings are white. If you paint your ceiling any other color but white, you have to be careful because you may make the room feel smaller. There was a trend a few years ago where people were painting the ceiling a little bit lighter of a color of the same color that was on the walls. And this trend, although it was popular at the time, is not really popular anymore. I went into a house just recently and the ceiling on the house was green and the walls were a darker green. The room had a calming kind of feeling to it, but it felt like a greenhouse as opposed to a bedroom. So again, you have to be cautious. Colors can have an effect on the way we feel and the way we perceive things. I put together this little presentation that talks about colors. Let's take a look. I've talked here on the Real Estate Show about the art and the science when it comes to selling or buying a home. And we just saw a presentation about colors and how colors can affect the way someone might perceive a home when they go into it. But what about general art? The art that you put on your walls. What kind of art should you have on your walls? What kind of art should you not have on your walls? Well, if we break it down, there's certain art that people will perceive as being negative, and other art people will perceive as being positive. If you're trying to convey a certain feeling in the home and you have large open walls, you might want to add some color to those walls, if not by painting, with artwork. But you want to make sure your artwork is something that is neutral or acceptable to the widest range of buyers. One of the things that's popular is to have a canvas painting on a wall somewhere that picks up the colors in the room, because it will draw things together. Now, some of the artwork you don't want to have out when you're putting your house up for sale, I always talk about family photos. You know, it's great that you have your wedding picture on the wall. It's nice that you have pictures of the kids or the grandkids, or perhaps your favorite vacation. But the buyer coming into the home really isn't interested in that. You want the buyer to come into the house and look at the house, not at your pictures. Pictures can be very distracting. And also, because of privacy issues nowadays, it's best not to have the family photos out on the walls. Another thing I like to talk about is religious things. Now, I don't want to be insulting to the audience out there, but it's nice to have things that represent your religion throughout your house. But again, when you put your house on the market, you have to remember it's going to be marketed to a wide range of people, and not everyone has the same belief systems that you do. So you want to put away anything that's religious. Also, any political statements that are out throughout your house. You know, during election time, sometimes we're so favored with a candidate, we may put one of their election posters up on our bedroom wall. We don't want to do that. Again, you want to be neutral. You want to avoid religious items and political items. And that kind of leads me to a thing we call fan art. We may be a sports person. I can't tell you how many houses I've gone into in New England where there's Red Sox paraphernalia all over the place, or Patriots paraphernalia all over the place. Whatever your team might be, whatever your art preferences might be, whatever you might be fans of, you want to remove those things, because again, they could have a negative effect on the home. And you're trying to sell the house, not the artwork that's in the house. I want to also mention one thing that's called commercial art. What is commercial art? Well, the best way to describe commercial art is something that's mass produced. I mean, have you ever gone over to a friend's house or to a relative's house and seen a picture or a painting or maybe an item that you recognize because maybe you have that same item, that same thing in your home, or maybe you saw it in another home? Again, the idea of mass-produced commercial art is just that. It's art that everyone likes, that everyone tends to pick to put in their homes. It's standardized. But again, you have to think that when you're bringing a buyer into a home, you want the buyer to look at the house, not the artwork. You don't want them saying, geez, didn't we just see that in that other house? You want them thinking about your house, not the other house that they saw. So you've got to kind of go through the house and get rid of those items that may unintentionally present a negative view or a negative attitude when a buyer comes in. Now, buyers. Artistry for a buyer. Now, you may have certain tastes or certain likes. You may like certain colors. You may like certain types of art or whatever that might be. You want to be able, as a buyer, to be able to visualize those things in the house that you're going to look at. So the more blank space there is in a house, the better, because now as a buyer, you can see in your mind's eye what your artwork, what your pictures, what your standardized things might look like within that home. And that goes along with what I said earlier for the sellers to kind of neutralize the walls. Use those pastel-like colors, use whites, use grays in order to even out the house. And it's also nice if you have continuity in the house. And what I mean by that is paint all the rooms the same color. I know over the years, sometimes we personalize our rooms. I once went into a house where every room in the house was a different color. That's nice, but it's a little bit confusing and a little disorienting as you're going through the house and you're going from one room to another and it's a different color. If you tie the colors together, you're going to create what's called a flow. And this all goes back to the artistry when it comes to selling a house. Let's take a look at this presentation about art you shouldn't have in your home, and I'll be back to close out the show. Realtors learn a lot of different things when it comes to not only the paperwork and the transaction and the techniques of selling a home or showing homes to a buyer. They learn the ideas behind the real estate market. They learn the artistry that's involved on how to take a home, put it on the market, get it out there to most potential buyers if they're representing the seller, what to do as far as staging that home, making advice to the seller as to the things they can do, put away, color changes, decoration changes, whatever it might be, in order to get that home out there to appeal. They also learn techniques in science. They learn mathematics. They learn how to assemble data, go through that data, and be able to make sense out of all that data. There's a lot of numbers that are out there. You know, we can go on different websites and look at a lot of different houses, and we see prices on those houses. And sometimes we wonder as a buyer, where'd they come up with that price? Or why is that house priced that way? Realtors have the expertise and the experience to be able to go into a house, not only price the house based on the data that they see, but also with their experience know where that house should be on the scale. Because you have to remember, folks, when a realtor goes into a house, they're not an appraiser. They're not going to look at the house for its value as to what a bank loan's going to go on. They're going to look at the house as far as where to price that to the market and where to adjust that price either up or down depending on their expertise, their experience in going in and out of like houses within that particular marketplace. The goal is obviously, whether it's art or whether it's science, is to be able to create an atmosphere either through color or through decoration or whatever it might be, to entice buyers to feel at home when they come in and look at a house, to entice the buyer to want to make an offer on the house, and to be able to get an offer that's close to the price of what you're asking, or in some cases, even over. For the buyer, you want to be able to go into a house and feel welcomed. You want to be able to feel that this house can become your home. My name is Rick Naples, and this has been The Real Estate Show. I thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.
Sometimes life just happens. Don't worry. Farmington Motorsports will get you back on the road and at a fair price. From towing to tires, emissions to transmissions.
Our ASC certified techs do it all.
Farmington Motorsports is a family-run business. We're a Napa Auto Center and AAA approved. We work on all makes and models from preventative maintenance to major repairs.
And every repair is backed by our 2-year, 24,000-mile nationwide warranty.
When life happens to you, don't worry. Farmington Motorsports.